Good afternoon, students. Now, in this session, we are going to study about what are functions, specifically in C programming, what are functions and how we use the functions, right? So let's start the session. So, what are functions, right? And how we declare the functions and what are the various type of functions in a programming. And at the end, we will also demonstrate using an online compiler that how we can write a function. So what is a function? First of all, while going through a function, we start with a general question. What do you think when you think about this pattern? When you heard a word called pattern. Now, what is a pattern? A pattern is basically a set of things or a series of a thing that are repeated in a sequence, right? To make the things simpler. You may have seen patterns in your colors, in your maths, in your music. You may have seen all these patterns, but there are patterns in programming too. What? Like, if you want your program to perform a certain set of steps and repeat those steps again and again in programming, that is a pattern. And what tool we used in programming to do those patterns and to repeat that pattern again and again? That's a function. Function in programming, right? So that's a basic general idea of functions. Now, let's take a very simple example of your daily life. How can you can relate functions in your daily life, right? So, every day in your life, you encounter or you tie your shoes, right? Every day, most of the time in the day, yeah, you have to tie your shoes. So, what it is? It is a function, right? You may not know that this is a function. First, you have to perform a set of steps, right? And that set of steps are created and result in an action. And that action is tie your shoes. So what you do? First, you gather the laces. Second, you knot it. Third, you loop it. And fourth, you swoop it. And then you tie it, right? This is how you tie your shoes. So in your mind, you are basically creating a function or performing a function. So that's how a function works in your real life. And if I want a computer to do that task, I will create a function and I will call that function again and again, and it will do that specific task to me, right? So that's how a function is all about. Now let's understand what is a function. So as per our previous discussions, you've understood that function is basically a block in which we have a set of steps, and that block will result in an action, right? And the action there was tie your shoes. But being a programmer, I can give any name to my action and I can reuse that action again and again in programming to make my code reusable and to make my code short, right? So let's come and take a deep dive into how we write, how functions look like in programming and how we deal the functions in programming. So if you can see, you have a line of codes, right? This, you have a line of code. In line of these codes, these are basically, this is your program. I'm talking about C. So this is your C program. It has so many lines. So what we do, we divide the large program into small blocks, and these blocks are known as functions, right? So what I've done, similar pattern, similar pattern, similar pattern, I've created that pattern with the function name fun, and I'm reusing that function in my coding. So what it will do, instead of these lines, I've just written fun, and it has, I've reused my function, and I have created a very small set of code also. And always remember, the functions are always enclosed with this bracket. This is the, within this bracket, you can create a set of statements, right? Whatever function you want to perform, whatever operation you want that function to do, you have to write like that. Now, let's understand what is the syntax of a function. How do you write a function? Now, the syntax of a function is the return type. So you have a return type and you have a function name. What is a return type? Return type, whenever you write a function, it have to have a return type. Either it should return something or it should not return something. So that's a syntax you have to write. So in C programming, you have to write void if you don't want to return anything. So instead of this return type, you have to write void as a data type. If you want to return integer or number, then you have to write integer, int. If you want to return float, that is a decimal number, that's 42.5. Your function is returning something called 42.5, right? So then you use this float. Then character, ABC. If you want to return something in character, you can write that character and then write the name of the function, right? So then the function name, whatever the name of a function, you can define and you can write, right? And at the end of a function, you have to write this bracket. So this is very important. When you write a function, with this bracket, it will distinguish me from the different variables. If I have a variable and I have a function, how I can distinguish? If that thing is having these brackets at the end, it means it's a function. That's it. So I get to know that in my coding, I have these many functions. That's the easiest way you can, distinguish being a beginner. And after that, you can write these set of steps. Within this, you can write. So this is the starting and this is the ending. And within that, you have to write the set of steps, right? So let's discuss what are the different type of functions that are there in programming, specifically in C programming. We have two types of a function. First is predefined function and the second is user-defined function. Now, what is this predefined function all about? Predefined is that is already there in your system, right? You just need to call that function. You know what is the name of a function, you just call that function, it automatically do the task for you. And user-defined function are those that are created by you. You want to create some functions that are user-defined, right? So these are user-defined functions. Now, what is predefined function? So if you want to print anything in C programming, you use printf. So what is printf? Printf is a user-defined function. See how I get to know that it's a function? At the end, this is having this, right? These bracket. So this will show me that this is a function. And printf is a predefined function. And if you want to call that function, you need to call header file first. So in stdio.h header file, we have a predefined function called printf, right? And with this printf, we can output anything we want. So it's a predefined function. There are so many other predefined functions that are already defined in programming. Now, what is a user-defined function? This is the very basic. Everywhere, in most of the programming, you write the function like this. So we are talking in C programming specifically. So there are 3 steps to write any function, right? First is you have to declare a function. First step is you need to declare a function. What is the declaration? You have to give the prototype that these function I'm going to use in a programming. If you write any function, you have to declare the prototype of that function before the main program. And then after that, you have to define that what exactly the function is going to do, what it is doing, right? And then I have to call that function inside the main program. Whatever the function I have created, I have to call it inside the main, because in C compiler, main is also a function in C programming, right? So whenever you run any program, the compiler will look of only at main program. It will search for the main, and whatever you have written below main, it will read those lines, right? So function calling is always inside the main function in C. Now let's see how we declare a function. So I have created a function and I have to declare that function in C programming. That's called the prototype in C, right? So I have this return type. I have this, function name, whatever name of your function, and whatever the parameters you want to pass, you can write those. Let's take an example. The return type of this function is integer. Then the name of the function is product. And I am using two arguments or parameter to pass in a function. So the function name is product that will have two arguments and one return type, that is integer. Now let's go. How we define a function. So to define a function, you need to write the return type first, right? So, and the name of the function. Here, my name of a function is sum. So we try to relate the name of the function, the work it is doing, right? So if it's a sum, so by the name, you get to know that, okay, it must be doing addition, right? So what we do is integer sum, int sum, and here, whatever you want to do, you can write. So int a equals to 5, b equals to 6, and sum, and I am adding that number and I'm returning that specific sum. Why I'm returning? Because this function will return something, and that too of integer type, right? That's why I am returning something. If I don't want to return anything, I want to print my sum value here, so I can write void here. And there should be no requirement for the return, right? So always remember that whenever you write any function, either it should have void, means it will not return anything. But if you're returning something, you have to give the return with that specific data type, right? So the third step is function calling. So let's go to the online compiler and share my screen with the online compiler. I try to do that. Let's do this, how we declare the functions in C programming and how we do that. So let's open the online compiler. So here, this is the online compiler that I am using. Now, in this compiler, what I'm doing is I am giving up with this first name, include stdio.h, that's your header file. And in this header file, what you will do, you have the specific set of a code. So what is the entry point of a C program? Whenever you write any C program, compiler will come to this main first. It will not go anywhere. So within this main program, you have to write everything, right? Now, let's create a function. So I have a function with the name sum. That's my function declaration, right? That's my function declaration. I've declared a function. Now I have to write a function, define a function, that what exactly this function will do. So you will define a function outside the main, right? Definition should be outside the main. Now, sum. So what I want to do, I want to add two numbers, right? So for that, I'm just entering A, B, and sum. right? And I want user to enter the value of A and B every time. So for that, enter the value of A and B, right? So you want a user to enter the value of A and B, it enters the value. Then you will scan the value. So printf is basically what you want to print. It will print it, and scanf, it will ask a user to enter the value, right? So I have two integer values, so I have used %d, right? And then and A and B. So it is asking a user to enter the value, right? After entering the value, whatever the value will come, I want it to put it in sum, right? And then it will print the value in sum. Right? So this is how my function definition works. So that's my function definition. Now, these are the two steps. First, you have to declare the prototype that these are the functions I am using above the main. Can you see? I've written above the main, right? And then void sum. That's the function definition. Whatever definition you want to give, you can give the definition in this. Now, third, the very most important, concept in function is function calling. You have declared it, you have defined it. Now you have to call it. If you don't call it, it will not run, right? It will not come. So here I just write the name of the function, sum, and write this is called function length. That's it. So this is how I have called the function. Let's run it and see what it will do. It is saying that I have given an extra. So let's stay here. So how it runs, how ABC has come, let's check step by step. So I've told you that when you run any C program, it will come to this line. Whatever the lines, it will come to this function, and after that it will come to the sum. From this sum, it will come to this definition, right? So it will come to this definition here. It will come to this point. Enter the value of A and B, right? That's why it is asking a user to enter the value. Why? Because I've used scanf, right? So you can enter 2, 3, any value you can enter, and whatever value you will enter, it will add to the sum and will print the sum of that specific number, right? So that's it. The sum is 5. This is how you will create a function that has 3 basic steps: function declaration, function calling, and function definition, right? All steps are very important. If you not follow any of the step like I do, I delete function declaration. Most of the time we don't require it. It depends on compiler to compiler also. But specifically, we have to define it, that these are the functions that we are using in while creating our program. So when you run it, it will run, but it will give you this error, right? So definition is there, but there is no function declaration, right? So you have to declare the function. So when you write it, then it will work, right? I think you like the session. If you like it, do subscribe it. Thank you so much.